In light of recent sporting sponsorship sagas, cricketer Pat Cummins' criticism of Alinta Energy and the Diamonds netball team's own goal, if you'll pardon the pun, with Hancock Prospecting. Now, Hancock Prospecting, of course, is an advertiser here on Sky News. The Institute of Public Affairs has commissioned a poll to see how you were feeling about elite sportsmen and women getting picky about sponsorships. And before we get into the details, I just want you to stop and think about elite professional sport. It's a privilege to be able to do what you love for a living, a very rare privilege that the majority are not afforded. Work is, for many people, more necessity than joy. So when we see gifted sports people like Pat Cummins, who larges it up, flying first class, swanning around in his Range Rover, spruiking solar panels made by the Uyghurs in China, and he's telling loyal sponsors like Alinta Energy, who stood by cricket, let's face it, they stood by cricket through the Sandpaper Gate scandal, when we see the likes of Cummins thumbing his nose at sponsors who don't meet his lofty green ideals, well, a lot of us feel pretty ticked off, and now the latest research shows that you and I are not alone. Daniel Wild is the Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and he joins me now. Daniel, welcome. Firstly, the vast majority of comments under online news stories, letters to the editors, callers to Talkback Radio, are slamming these pampered stars. Did you even need a poll to tell you what Australians are thinking about this issue?
Well, good to be with you, Glee. So maybe we didn't. As you say, the feedback from mainstream Australians is overwhelmingly that they don't want politics in sport. And I think you hit the nail on the head just a moment ago in saying, look, there's nothing wrong with a cricketer or a sports star or a captain having their own opinion. Of course, they have a right to free speech like everybody else. The issue is when they're using their privileged position in their sporting role to campaign for their own pet political causes, which just divides us as a community. Throughout our history, sport has been a great unifier. No matter whether you're rich or poor, or your racial background, your religion, or your ethnicity, everybody comes together on the sporting field or in the stands to cheer their favourite team. It's brought us together, made us more egalitarian, and it's one of the great levelling forces of our society. And the issue here is that by taking public stands on issues, whether it's climate change or whatever other issue it might be, it divides the community and sends a message to Australians who might not agree with the views of Pat Cummins or anyone else that you're not welcome at the cricket or at the footy or at the netball. And as I say, it diminishes us all.
Daniel, who in their right mind would sponsor a sporting team? I mean, the parameters and boundaries, they keep changing. What's acceptable in 2022 might be taboo in a couple of years. I mean, pardon the pun, but the goalposts keep changing.
They certainly do, and that's one of the big issues here. There'll be many corporates that either currently are or otherwise would have considered sponsoring major sporting teams or major sporting codes that are now rethinking it because they don't want to get embroiled in sporting controversy or political controversy. And so that's to the detriment of the sports in general. It's also to the detriment of the other players. And I have to say, I feel for the players that are involved in this. I don't think a majority of players in whatever sport want to get political. They want to play sport. That's why they do it. And the issue here is it can be not only divisive in the community, but also divisive in the locker room. Because if you're a player and your captain's going out there getting the limelight for making political comments, well, what if you don't agree with him or her about what they're saying? How might that make you feel when you're all supposed to be together in a team working toward the same mission of being successful, yet you've got one of your players out there who's hogging the limelight on a political issue? So I'm concerned concerned, and also I feel sorry for the other players that are caught up in this.
I think it's also interesting, there's a wider debate here, Daniel. There are dangers now, I think, for sporting bodies. Could the public abandon them if they become too politically correct? And we see it with the AFL and we see it with a whole range of sports. They're brilliant games and they've got great content, and content is always king. But, there are a lot of people who disagree with what's going on right now.
They do, and look, the worst case scenario is we end up like in the United States. Over the last few years, sport in the United States has been very political, on both sides I might add, and that turns a lot of people off because people go to sport and they play sport to get away from politics, to get away from work, to get away from the day-to-day drudgeries of life. and to tune out and to have some excitement. So you're right, I think there's a lot of Australians who are tuning out, and that's what our poll clearly shows. 61% of Australians believe that sport like the AFL and cricket is becoming too politically correct, and about the same proportion in our poll said it's wrong for sporting players to be engaging in political campaigning on their personal projects. So, look, fans might put up with this for a while, but they want to go to the sport not only to get away from politics, but also to watch excellence in action. You know, that is what draws people to sport, sure. The passion that is there, the drive, and as I say, it is dividing us and it turns people away.
Johannes Leek is a fantastic cartoonist at The Australian, and I think he nailed it with this one earlier in the week. It just sort of signifies everything that we want to know about this debate. I mean, have a look at that, guys. It encapsulates where this debate is right now. Daniel Wild, it's always great to see you. Thanks for your time tonight.
Pleasure. Great to be on.